for a time. Good morning. The House Transportation Committee will come to order. Madam Clerk, boy, look at everybody scurry. The power of the gavel. Would you take attendance?
Chair O'Malley.
Here.
Representatives Eisen.
Here.
Powell.
Here.
Griffin. LaFave. Berman.
Yes.
Cara.
Here.
Roth.
Here.
Sneller.
Here.
Clemente. Here. Shannon. Liberati.
Here.
Corey.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 members present. You do have a quorum.
Very good. Thank you. I need a motion to approve the minutes from October 19th. Representative Puri makes that motion. Seeing no opposition, the minutes are approved. All right, we have a couple of members that are on the way, so we're going to hold the vote on House Bill 4973 until between our two presenters here today. So that will come up shortly. But right now, we can get moving and ask up for House Bill 4983 and 4984, Representative Colley and Clemente. Ladies, the floor is yours, and I believe you are bringing up Professor of Pediatrics and Human Development from Michigan State University, Dr. Gold. All right. Hello, welcome. And members, we'll let the representatives and the good doctor testify, then we'll take questions after they're done. And then we have some other folks to testify on this as well. And once you are all plugged in, you're ready.
All right, well, thank you, and good morning, Chairman O'Malley and members of the House Transportation Committee. I thank you very much for the opportunity to share testimony on this legislation that will help prevent injuries and help save the lives of children across Michigan. House Bills 4983 and 4984 address Michigan's current car seat laws and put into place updated and practical standards that will promote safety and awareness for kids in our state. Unfortunately, Michigan's laws have been slow to react as more research has gone into crashes and with children and car seats, as well as child development. According to C.S. Mott Children's Hospital here in Michigan, motor vehicle crashes are the leading cause of death and disability among children and are the second leading cause of injury-related admissions at their hospitals. We can certainly do better here for our kids across the state. So as you probably know, especially if this is not your first term serving on the Transportation Committee, car seat laws are set by each state, and they're subject to a wide array of requirements. Michigan actually has some of the more lenient state requirements right now regarding car seats. Our current car seat regulations only require some type of child restraint until the child is 8 years old or 57 inches tall. And many other states are more prescriptive. For example, there are states that require a child under 2 or 30 pounds to be in a rear-facing seat, a child less than 4 to be in a front-facing seat, and a child under 8 to be in a booster seat. So one of the two bills before you right now, House Bill 4983, requires a driver transporting a child to properly secure that child in a child restraint system that meets federal standards. The child would have to be positioned in the child seat in a rear seat of the vehicle. If, one, the vehicle has a rear seat, and two, not all the rear seats are taken by other children. A child in a rear-facing seat could be placed in the front seat only if the front passenger airbag was deactivated. In addition, the bill updates and clarifies when to use a rear-facing seat, a front car seat, or a booster seat. And if any of you have had children that you are transporting, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. And if you don't, it's worth finding out. According to the American Academy of Pediatrics, car seats reduce the risk of death in infants by 71%, and in toddlers by 54%. Booster seats reduce the risk of injury by 46% in children ages 4 to 8. So, we have an opportunity here to put more weight into the stages of a child's development when we are looking at how they should be seated in a car. If we don't connect these stages with the proper seating arrangement, children are at a greater risk of injury. These are not complicated measures that will be difficult to enforce. They're not complicated measures that will be difficult to understand. They are uniform, accepted benchmarks backed by science for that families can understand, that older children can understand, and that law enforcement can implement to keep kids safer. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Cowley, and thank you, Chairman, for taking this up today. My bill, House Bill 4984, serves as a companion legislation to Rep. Cowley's 4983, specifying the enforcement and child seat training requirements if a driver receives a civil infraction for improperly securing his or her child while driving. These bills are a reintroduction from last session. One of the most important aspects of raising children is ensuring their safety. From wearing helmets to solutions that prevent unwanted access to prescriptions, medications, physicians and other experts recommend that guide our everyday laws and practices. With the inherent and often unexpected dangers of driving, it would then follow that we should consider their guidance in determining the best methods for positioning and strapping down a car seat. To promote driver education in the interests of child safety, my bill puts forth a series of reasonable civil fines in the event a driver is pulled over with explanation for not correctly using a child safety seat. It is also important that we recognize that everyone makes mistakes, and perhaps new parents even more so. House Bill 4984 would additionally allows a fine to be waived if the driver provides proof of training from a certified safety technician and that the car seat is now correctly installed. I would like to thank Rep. Cowley for her collaboration in working to modernize laws that, if implemented, will significantly help to reduce the number of deaths and injuries in infants, toddlers, and young children. Thank you.
Good morning, representatives, and thank you for your time this morning. In addition to being faculty at the College of Human Medicine, I'm also a practicing pediatrician, and I'm also representing the Michigan chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics, so that's the member organization for the pediatricians of the state. So thanks for your time. I'm going to talk and really more just amplify and illustrate some of the things that you heard from our representatives that are sponsoring the bill. So first, you heard that motor vehicle accidents remain the leading cause of death, and here's a graph that illustrates it. And you can see that although the numbers have gone down, thanks to safety issues, they're still far and away the leading cause of death in children, and we can quite honestly do better. And why is there still an issue? Well, there's a number of reasons, but one of them is even though there are engineering factors that are making cars safer to a degree, the drivers themselves are distracted, and so motor vehicle accidents are common. Luckily, car seats are very effective in keeping kids safe even in the event of a serious accident. So the unfortunate thing, as you heard, is that Michigan's laws are out of date. The American Academy of Pediatrics policy, you can see here, says 2018, but in fact, that was just a revision of a policy statement from 2011. So really, we're a little over a decade out of date in terms of what our laws say in Michigan currently compared to what is recommended by the American Academy of Pediatrics and what we've been advocating with our families when we meet with them on a daily basis. So on the left-hand side, you can see what the current statute says, which is basically there needs to be some kind of a safety seat until the age of 4. And there needs to be a booster seat until either 57 inches, which is 4'9", or the age of 8. What the bills that we're looking at today would do, which again matches what the policy recommendations of our pediatric bodies would require kids to remain in the rear-facing car seat as long as possible until they reach the height or weight limit of the car seat or until the age of 2. And then in a 5-point harness until they reach the height or weight limit of the car seat or until the age of 5. And then in booster seats until either 57 inches or till the age of 8. And then staying in the rear seat, if at all possible, until the age of 13. So those are the changes that we would implement. And this really matches closely with what the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration recommends in terms of car seats. So you can see where our current statute is compared to what their recommendations are. Why is this important? Well, the anatomy and physiology of infants and young children really make their neck and their back very fragile and vulnerable. And you can see from this illustration that a rear-facing car seat, in the event of a sudden stop, the back of the car seat would actually support the spine and neck of the child, while if the child was forward-facing at this age, you can see the stress that would be put on the spine of the child or infant, which would lead to a high risk of injury. So this really just shows that. I often hear from parents that they're worried that their kid won't fit in the rear-facing car seat because they have to bend their knees. That's completely fine, right? There's nothing wrong with being rear-facing, as you see in the illustration here, and having your knees bent. Is what really is important is what happens in the case of an accident, right? And that's what we're aiming for today. And then the 5-point harness really takes that force in older kids of the crash and distributes it over multiple points so that there's less stress on the child's body. Booster seats, what they really do, and the way I explain this to families, is they really position the seat belt. So instead of having the seat belt along the neck and the stomach and putting high risk of injury, they really put the belt where it should be, which is across the chest and across the lap of the child. And that's really what booster seats are about. So. And then again, even for kids, older kids, the safest place to be in the car is the back seat. So until kids are 13, we recommend that kids stay in the back seat. So this is an important bill for our families, and what it does is it aligns what we already are telling families with a law, right? It's always confusing to families when we say one thing and the law says something else. So really, I think it's best for families and less confusing if the law says what we are saying and what's been recommended for a number of years now. And as you've heard, this is not anything that's going to be a big burden for families. They already have the car seats. It's just a matter of using them for a different length of time and for the time up until the car seat has its limits or the recommendation is to switch. So that's all I had to say. As was started with, really, this is really about keeping kids safe. And that's really what we're about too.
All right, very good. We have quite a few questions. I do want to remind the committee we do have some other folks that will testify. MSP is also going to testify, so if your question revolves around any of that, just know that's coming. But we'll get to them. I'm going to start real quick by saying, I don't know if anybody cares, but I have kind of an odd history with car seats. Having done some stories and some insight on these things. They started, if you remember, to take you back to the late 60s, early 70s when General Motors designed them for the first time, and they were called love seats. And GM did not copyright the design because they wanted everybody to be safe. And I talked to the gentleman who designed them, and before this all came about, all there was a belt and a harness that you strapped your kid in, and you prayed that they didn't go flying out a window when you hit something. And we've come a long way to today. But my question is this, because you mentioned it, Rep., we kind of had this same legislation last year, but in a different format. Can you add any insight? Why is this so difficult? Why can't we get this right? Why is there, as soon as we talk about car seat adjustments, there's people popping out of the woodwork. You can't do this, you got to do this, you can't do that. Why is it so difficult? Anybody?
And I don't know if Rep. Clemente would want to answer that because I know she was one of the sponsors last term along with Rep. Alexander on why, or to the pediatrician. I have not sponsored this before. I just know that this is common sense, reasonable legislation that will align with what we are already doing as the pediatrician, as Dr. Gold shared. That's already being recommended, but yet there's a lot of confusion when a law doesn't align with the recommendations. These are it's about our kids. They aren't hard. There's no burden. They already own these. Michigan State Police, I think you will hear, is going to explain why they are generally supportive of this as well. So I don't know. Is it politics? I'm not sure.
I don't either. So, Doctor, you have any thoughts? And then we'll get to everybody else. There's a lot of
I
questions.
don't know why it's difficult either, quite honestly. It's not difficult from our point of view. What we're trying to do is just make everything align, right?
Yeah.
All the expert bodies say the same thing.
And as I remember, the gentleman who designed the first love seat, his goal was to keep kids safe. And I think that should be our goal, too. Rep. Griffin, you are up first.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My question pertains to 4984. So just a quick question. When you're talking about the bill would add additional requirement of providing evidence that someone has received education from a certified child safety instructor or technician. So what is the evidence? I'm assuming it's a signed piece of paper, and then who is the certified child passenger safety technician? Because then it just seems like, okay, how hard is that going to be for a new mom? Maybe with first kid, not second, but just fill in the blanks maybe a little for me. Thank you.
I think what's going to happen if MSP is also going to testify, but this is if you are actually pulled over, then you will have to go to a police station or someone that can give you a piece of paper that says that and they'll show you exactly how to put the seat in. Or maybe it's someone that doesn't have a child seat. Kids are in the back. We've seen that before. And then they will, the officer has the right to pull them over and then talk to them, and then they will have to go. Yes. So the fine is the deterrent to go and take care of this. Thank you.
Representative Lefebvre.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have lots of questions.
Well, narrow it to a couple. We've got lots of them
I
here.
appreciate it. Can we go back to the slide where we had the arrows at the crash data? There's 3 giant arrows with reduction in motor vehicle crashes. What do those correspond to?
That's a question for me. I actually don't remember from the article itself what the particular interventions were. The point of the slide is that the interventions are effective.
But you don't know, you can't tell us what those interventions are.
Not off the top of my head, no.
Okay, so it could just be that it could literally be anything. It has nothing to do with car seats.
The point of the slide actually is that the accidents remain the #1 cause of death in children.
Yeah,
Not
and
about
that's
those interventions.
tragic. I wish that wasn't the case. But those arrows have nothing to do with statutes by the Michigan legislature.
I can't comment one way or the other since I don't remember what the
Okay.
arrows were corresponding to.
Can I jump in real quick? Doctor,
Chairman,
can you
please.
provide us the information on that slide?
Absolutely. I'd be
Thank
happy
you.
to.
Rep.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's a very good point. If you have that information, I'd love to see it. Wish we would have got it today, but is it your testimony today that this legislation applies to booster seats until you're 4'9"?
That is correct.
Why? Okay, so what if you're 75 and 4'9"? Why wouldn't you want to have a booster seat then? Or 85 or 95?
If you look at, thank you, Representative Lefebvre. I'm actually glad that you brought this up, and I was hoping it would be brought forward during the committee process. If you look at page 2 and 3 of House Bill 4983, line 15, line 22, and line 1 on
And I'm
page
sorry,
3.
we don't have the
You
legislation.
don't have the actual bill?
No, we
It
didn't
should
get
be, it's in your,
provided it.
computer.
Absolutely, I
Well, at
will look
another
it up.
point that you will see, and it's always nice when you can see it for yourself, that it says either of the following requirements. Either of the following
no,
requirements.
totally understand.
And either. So it takes care of your question, which I'm glad that you brought up.
You're missing my point, though, with all due respect, Representative. Why would it be either? The legislation says that you need to be 4'9" for a booster seat. Why wouldn't is the question.
I'm not a pediatrician, but I think part of what is caused the recommendations to be further developed over the last 10 years is taking into account child development itself. And I would refer to the medical expert on that piece. But this is a kind of a marriage, if you will, of using all of the information that we have in our modern age related to child development, bone development, organ development, as well as, so that's why it's an age or a height piece. But I would refer to the medical expert to deliver a little more information there.
And that absolutely was meant.
I don't know
more
if
for
he
the
wants to
medical.
answer you, though.
Yeah, it was definitely meant for a medical professional and Representative. I certainly appreciate your hard work on this and everything else that you do in the legislature. And I do appreciate that as well. Doctor, is there any reason why 95-year-olds that are 4'8" shouldn't be in these booster seats?
They are welcome to make that choice if they want to.
Wouldn't it
This
save
bill-
lives?
It might. An adult certainly could make that choice. If they're under 57 inches, they certainly could make the choice to sit in a booster, sort of to position the seatbelt in the appropriate way if they wanted to. This bill is focused on kids. My focus is on kids. That's where our focus is. Adults can make their choice, and certainly you're right that positioning the seatbelt in the correct way for anyone who's at that height would be appropriate.
So wouldn't it make more sense than, and last one, I do have more, but I will finish here.
You can
Wouldn't it
go
make
offline, you bet. Go ahead.
Wouldn't it make more sense then to have the car manufacturers make all of the car seats in the vehicle face backwards to save lives? If it truly is about saving lives, why are we limiting it just to saving children's lives? Don't all lives matter in the medical profession? Why don't we have all of the seats face backwards and save lives as opposed to just
You
saying
made your
that,
point. Let's let him answer.
just saying that 9-year-olds' lives matter and 8-year-olds and 7, but not 10 and not 95?
Like I said, I have no problem with having people who are, in fact, our recommendation is often to let the kids stay in the car seats as long as they can, because we know that the longer they stay in, the safer it is. There are manufacturing limits to how long some of these car seats can be used, so we can't have someone who weighs 125 pounds sit in a rear-facing car seat. They wouldn't fit.
And I do have questions about peoples with
You can
disabilities.
follow up. I've got other folks. So.
No, I understand. Just I have questions about people with disabilities like I do.
Understood.
These rear-facing car seats are not going to work for all of the disabled individuals
Well,
under 9 or whatnot.
we're talking specifically about kids here, and I understand too. All right. Well, again, we can talk about that offline. Vice Chair Sneller, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Kind of twofold. Just to get clarity on what Rep. Lefebvre was just saying, the bill doesn't go beyond the age of 13, correct? So it doesn't matter if you're 5 foot or 4 foot, whatever, when you're 30, 40, 50, correct? Because you're only talking about up to 13. Okay, now that's clear. Now, Rep. Clemente, real easy. Now, is the current fine?
If it is,
Okay, and then
yes.
so under this bill, if you were to be pulled over, rather than pay 25, you'd pay 15, and have the 10 deducted if you buy the new car seat.
And it's installed properly, and also it could be waived also, depending upon how things go.
Great, thank you.
Welcome.
Vice Chair Eisen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Well, a couple of the other representatives hit on my first question was, in simple terms, I get pulled over, I get a ticket, I can get that ticket taken away if I go through this training course. That's the simplest way of putting it, okay?
That is the simplest way of putting it. It's a deterrent so that people will use car seats for their children. We have seen it before, I know. We have all been driving and have seen kids not put in a car seat in the back of the van, and we know that there's distracted driving. We've heard all about it in committee. So what we're trying to do is educate people. They're doing a great job in hospitals and different places educating people, but it's when you have multiple children maybe, or something's going on. And there are programs to receive car seats and training.
That's an option for them. Okay. Now to answer Representative O'Malley's question, why this takes so long, because this is Lansing and everything takes so long here, okay? Everything's a pain, everything's a job, okay? It's a pain, okay? You got a great idea and, 10 months later, we're still got a great idea. So, and just to put a little fun on the 13-year-olds, I was driving at 12, okay? I learned how to do 3-speed on the column at 13, and I was driving a Ford 65 truck on the farm and going down the road at 13, just to put things in perspective as to how old I am. So, but thank you.
Very good. Representative Shannon, you're up, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So this is a question for the doctor. Why would it be you're recommending that anyone under 13 be in the back seat? What are the issues with someone being in the front seat? My son is 5'1", he's 10, he's 5'1", almost 100 pounds. Why would it be more dangerous in the front? Is it the airbags, or is it just because, when you get at some sort of collision, in the front seat, it's just more dangerous? It would be safer for all of us to be in the back seat? I mean, not the driver, obviously.
Yeah,
but-
that's probably true. It's probably the second, that for all people, probably the back seat is the safest place to be within the car. And for kids, probably because their organs are developing, we just want to be especially careful with them at that point until they're more fully developed.
Okay, and quick clarification on something that it says the bill also allows and recommends that a child between 8 and 13 be placed in a booster seat. So if my son doesn't, like I said, he's 10 years old, almost 100 pounds, 5'1". He's not in the booster seat right now. So if it's just recommending, what are the penalties, for that, if they're not, since it's just a recommendation, there would be no penalty, I assume. But what are the penalties if I choose to have my son, 10 years old, in the front seat? I would be, as long as I did read that if there's kids in the back that are, full of kids, you don't have any more room, then it would be okay for my son to be in the front seat. What are the penalties? I didn't see anything about the penalties for that.
There's no penalties. If that was the case, if your son has, if he's not meeting the requirements, he's sitting in the front seat, the only thing that could happen, and if you've ever seen this, when an airbag goes off, make sure that he's sitting as far back as possible, because I have witnessed someone, a younger person, get hit with the airbag, and it's very dangerous. I don't know if the doctor can, but if he does have you have lots of kids in the car, you need to put him in the front. There won't be a penalty, but if you get in an accident, make sure that he's sitting as far back as possible. I don't know if anyone can say that, but that would be, what I would do.
Yeah, well, he does sit in the back seat. From time to time, I've had kids in the back where he needs to sit in the front. But so if it's just me and him driving, a police officer pulls me over, sees that it's, hey, how old is he? He's not 13 yet. What are the penalties to me? Do I get something on my driving record? Do I have a fine to pay? What is the penalty?
I guess I would ask MSP to say what would happen, like how officers are trained and what they might ask you. I don't know exactly. If he has a seatbelt on, they might, I don't know.
So if MSP does come up, if they
Yep,
keep
they will
that in mind,
be here shortly.
Yep.
All
That's all I
right,
have.
one more question here before, oh, did you have?
No, that's it.
Okay. One more question before we move to the next testimony. Rep. Puri.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you for your testimony today. I have two small boys, both in car seats, and so familiar with some of these conversations. A couple just points of clarification. Michigan, with current statute, does it require any intervention, or is there any requirement for children under 2 right now to be restrained in a car seat?
Oh, sorry. We can look at the current now. The rule is basically just some kind of car safety seat under 4.
And
Specific between rear-facing and forward-facing currently in the statute.
Okay, and then how many states have a statute for children specifically under 2? Do you know?
It's the majority. I don't remember off the top of my head.
Okay, so it's
I
kind of
can
an
get you that
exception
data
for us
if you'd
to
like.
not have that. And then, do we have any information on kind of the intervention of this proposed legislation, what that would have to, the amount of effect that would have to reduce child injuries and deaths from car seats? So if these laws were into place, what effect would that have on those statistics?
can't give you specifics, but I know that in states where there are more car seat laws that more closely match this, then the compliance with those recommendations are higher. And one would presume, although again, I can't give you specifics, that the numbers of deaths would be lower in that case.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We're going to keep moving here. We do have a bit of a time crunch, so I want to make sure we also have other folks wanting to testify on their legislation, so we're going to keep moving. Thank you very much. Now we have Marie Snodgrass, Injury Prevention Program Lead at CS Mott, wishing to speak. Correct or incorrect?
That is correct.
Oh, you are. Oh, I didn't realize you were on Zoom. Very good.
I'm
There
sorry.
you are.
I'm coming virtually from Burton, Michigan, with a
Burton.
broken foot, or I would be in Lansing with you all.
Very good. You are up, so go right ahead.
Hello.
All right. Are you trying to share your screen?
I am so sorry.
No, go ahead. With that, I'll just let you know, again, on deck, Lieutenant Better from Michigan State Police, and then Amy Zagman yet to testify too. So, yeah, I can read those well. Are you ready?
Can you see my screen?
No. We can see you.
No. Well, I can't see you now. I can only see my screen. So
Everyone has a printed copy.
We all have a printed copy of this. We can kind of move along. That might just be easier. Oh, there we go. We got it.
you got me?
When you're ready, we can
I
see
lost
it.
it. Give me 1 second. So sorry.
All right. There we go. Looks really good now.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. My name is Marie Snodgrass. I work over at CS Mott Children's Hospital. I'm the Pediatric Trauma and Injury Prevention Program Lead. I have been a child passenger safety technician and instructor for over 20 years now. And I'm also the Safe Kids Huron Valley Program Coordinator. So I was very quietly taking notes, and there may be some questions that were just discussed that I may be able to help answer, or that might come up again after I'm done speaking. But again, thank you for this opportunity. I just want to mention that there is an amazing network of child passenger safety technicians and instructors across the state of Michigan. We are nationally certified. It's a partnership between the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration and the National Child Passenger Safety Board and Safe Kids Worldwide. It's no joke, this training. It's a 4-day, 32-hour training. Every 2 years, we have to go through a recertification process so we can stay up on the technology changes that happen with automobile manufacturers, with car seat manufacturers. Technology is constantly changing, and so therefore we as technicians and instructors have to make sure that we are on top of that and that we are staying current with all of the changes so that we can help educate parents and caregivers as much as possible. Pre-pandemic numbers were that we had approximately 1,000 certified technicians in the state with 50 instructors. I don't exactly know where our numbers are. I think we've lost some technicians, but we've again started offering classes again. That it's only because we didn't have trainings offered during the pandemic times, and we're kind of catching back up with those numbers. I just wanted to kind of mention, and I think that this has also been discussed already this morning, but our current law is confusing. And if you really dig into what the law says, is very nice the way the representative that spoke this morning kind of broke it down for us, and Dr. Gold also did in that chart. But when you really get into the minutia of the way the law is written, it's very confusing. Parents are very confused by it, and I'll be honest, so are most doctors, law enforcement, and even some of the child passenger safety and injury prevention workers that are in this field. And so if we are confused by it and we're having trouble interpreting the law, it confuses the messaging that parents are getting. And I think that is a huge problem. We really need to do a better job, I think, and we can do a better job for our parents by coming up with clearer messaging that aligns with what it is that we're trying to recommend. As Dr. Gold was speaking this morning, and he was saying, we just want a concise message that is that speaks both legally and what best practice is. So we're not giving two different answers to parents. We have a lot of parents that will come up to us and say, you know, when we're trying to educate, okay, but what's the law? And it's really hard as an educator to say, I can tell you what the law is, but I can also tell you what will keep your child the safest. And it's sad as somebody who works in Michigan and who's been doing this for 20 years to not have that align and to not have what our law is be what is keeping our children the safest. The hardest conversations I have had working at CS Mott Children's Hospital and working in the medical field is post crash with a parent and hearing these words, and I have honestly heard them more times than I would like to admit. I thought I was doing everything right. I was following the law. I had no idea what I was doing wasn't the safest. Or why didn't anyone ever tell me this? I never would have taken him out of that seat or moved him into the next seat had I have known. So to hear a parent say that and then to know that they're carrying guilt for something that they just didn't know is heartbreaking. And I think that by getting our laws aligned with what our best practices and what our recommendations are, I think we can do a better job by our parents and we can help them understand and do better by their children.